For all these years, can we just admit that Alex Jones was probably right about how dangerous some of these people are? For like the last 30 or 40 years, he's been talking about how the elites and the upper classes are doing real wicked, satanic stuff. And now it's actually starting to be exposed. Today we're going to discuss some more things that has gotten even darker and more evil, even more sinister than you can imagine when it comes to these files. Not only that, we have cover-ups from the FBI. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, where you at? Pam Bondi, where you at? We're going to discuss that. Also, we're going to talk about the halftime. How does that have to do anything with what we see with all these files and lists? Well, who picks the Super Bowl halftime show? It may surprise you. Someone who has demonic ties himself and has Epstein ties. It's amazing how all these things just bob and weave close together. It's amazing. Isn't it weird how we have all this stuff happening and all of a sudden we start hitting cure for cancers? We start seeing all this stuff come out. Is it that we're actually finding these cures, or is it one of those things where they're trying to distract from how crazy some of these stories are? We're going to discuss all that because it deals with evil. This kind of reminds me of what we're going to end the video on today. Is if you remember in Scripture, it talks about a great falling away, basically before the end of times. You know, when we talk about the Super Bowl, we talk about all this stuff. We talk about how these athletes are over across seas dogging America out. We see all these people that may move closer to Christ, but so many are starting to distance themselves. You're really starting to see a divide of good and evil, not R&Ds, not different party lines. Truthfully, good versus evil. Are we living in the last days when we see evil running amok? It's not getting better. It's amazing how some people are getting stronger in their Christian faith, but then there's so many people pulling away. It may be biblical, and I think it is. Let's dive into these stories today and so many more. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Thank you so very much for being here. Again, we are humbled by your support each and every day that you come back and watch us. So happy Monday. Hope you've had a good day. Now, let's talk about some of these stories for the day. That's why you're here. First, let's talk about the Super Bowl. And I don't really want to spend a lot of time on this because personally, I was a monster football fan for the longest of years. Especially when I was a younger kid and all the way through up Drew Brees' years in the Saints. But then it started getting indoctrinated. I kind of just quit watching it. It's just not that important to me. Well, it kind of goes along with what's been going on all these years and all this, this kind of the DEI stuff and all the, the special national anthems and just all this, honestly, grifting. I don't watch it anymore. But, I guess what blew my mind is once I started hearing the Bad Bunny thing. First of all, he's not even singing in our own national language on our own America's pastime, which is football. So it just amazes me that Roger Goodell and NFL hire people like this to quote-unquote represent America's liberty and freedom and what honors truly American. And if you look at who applauded it, it was all the people on the left, of course. When you look at people who didn't applaud it, it was all the people on the right or all the people who tuned into TPUSA, which did phenomenally well. It's like 10 to 15 million views already. So the thing I want to pay attention to is this. I started digging in, saying, okay, well, who actually picks these shows? I mean, Roger Goodell was full-fledged in on it. He was so happy that Bad Bunny was going to be there, and probably it hurt his views because, to be honest with you, remember, there's a lot of revenue that come in. But the thing that I wanted to find out is who actually picks it. Well, this will kind of blow your mind because it leads to the stories of evilness. Who picks the NFL halftime? Jay-Z and his company Roc Nation. The same people that has the spiritual relationship with this satanic cooker named Marina, the same person who's tied in a lot of these files with Epstein, he's the one who picks it. You know who was beside him at the NFL halftime show and they showed him up there and he was with in his own little private suite? Jack Dorsey, Twitter, social media. Now that's the same Jack Dorsey that just came out about 2 weeks ago and said that no matter what I did and what I was going to do, there's always a heavy hand on me. And he was talking about the government. It's amazing how all these things are tied together. He talked about Alex Jones being right. For the longest, he's talked about all these things about how the pizza and all these food anonyms and all this stuff that's been talked about, it's starting to come out in the list, from jerky to hot dogs and all this kind of random junk. And it shows that we're just living in a true depravity. Now, some of the other people that were exposed, there's a guy named Dr. Evil. Now, why is he called Dr. Evil? That's what people call him. Why was he in these files talking about these kind of things? Not only that, I want to read something that really blew my mind. I think this is where we have to have arrest or at least firings. I want you to listen to this. What's just been exposed is during the situation with them looking into the files, the FBI under Kash Patel and Dan Bongino's direction internally discussed clear and specific guidance to redact. They were talking about how there's several former presidents, a few Secretary of States, and several very well-known celebrities in these files. And they were trying to be conspicuous, but at the same time be inconspicuous with these certain details. Now, what they're saying is we want to expose it, but to be honest with you, if we expose too many of these, I'm scared it will cause a major panic across America, because we'd realize how many evil people, especially people in power, they're tied to this guy. So we have people called Dr. Evil tied to this guy. Sounds like a James Bond villain. We have Jay-Z, the person who's providing the Super Bowl music that doesn't represent America at all, is also tied to this. Jack Dorsey sitting next to him that's tied to social media that also said that, you know, he was always looked upon by the intelligence agency to do what they basically said, beck and call, even though he was a rich billionaire owning a social media presence. That's why he moved out of America, to be honest with you. And now all of a sudden we come out and hear that our own government was trying to cover up certain people because they were scared it was going to expose the biggest of players among us. It's time to expose them, people, no matter what the cost is. I think this blew my mind more than anything. Personally, I told you before, I was wrong. And I admit it, I was wrong, because I thought Kash Patel was going to be a winner. I thought Dan Bongino would do good, but I really thought Kash Patel was going to be a juggernaut. And man, he has been a huge disappointment. I don't know what they have on him. I don't know if it's one of those things that it's just so in-depth and scary for him to say, you know, I don't want to be the one to crash the whole society when I bring all this out. I don't know. But between him and Pam Bondi, they should be fired over this one memo trying to hide these names. If it's Clinton, if it's Bush, which both have been admittedly tied to it, Bush 1 was tied to some very, very sinister stuff that Alex Jones again talked about, how, you know, eating certain things and very cannibalistic things. I mean, like, you're like, this stuff is so far out. It's like a movie we're watching. And this stuff is talked about openly on emails. This is some crazy stuff. But it's amazing how it still is going on today, because the same people that's tied to this list are the same people doing the Super Bowl halftime show. The same people who's giving these interviews. I want you to listen to this. This is even creepier. Oh my gosh, creepier. Epstein's alleged girlfriend came out. And she said, if all of a sudden something happens to me, I have a definitive situation where if something happens, it's like a kill switch, where all this stuff will be let out. And she's talking about how she's safe now because she believes that if all of a sudden something happened to her or even somebody like Ghislaine, that there would be things implemented already that people know about that would expose all these people. Now, if you noticed, who last week said they couldn't wait to go before Congress? Now, Bill Clinton was trying to get sick and he couldn't do it and closed door. Hillary Clinton said, no, I'm willing to speak. I think they calmed that down, James Comer and all of them, because I think they realized that she may be willing to burn all these bridges. Alright, I'm stopping the video just for a second because I want to talk about my sponsor for today. We've talked about them several times because they're that important. Chapter. If you're 65 and older or about to be, please check with Chapter today. They're here to help you understand Medicare better. Sometimes if we just being honest, we may not understand actually what we're buying. Our parents and our grandparents, and maybe that's you at that certain age where you're thinking, I really don't know if I'm saving money. I don't know if I have too much coverage, not enough coverage. I don't understand this part. Is this the supplement I'm supposed to be on? Well, that's where Chapter comes along. Call this number below. Chapter comes alongside you. They know the plans back and forth. They know what's best for you. They're going to get information. You're going to spend 10 to 15 minutes on the phone. And guess what? For the people who use Chapter, The average person who uses Chapter saves $1,100 a year. In a time where everything is going up, I'm trying to tell you about a sponsor who's trying to save you money. And when you're 65 and older, you may be on a tighter budget now. Let Chapter help you. Call them today. See if they can help you save some money. Doesn't cost, no obligation to you. All it takes is you answer some questions, and all of a sudden you're going to realize, wow, I can save some money here. If you save $800, $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,500, then that's money in the pocket to help you through everyday life. Check with Chapter today. Let them walk you through and make sure you have the right plan so you can have a better peace of mind when you go to sleep, knowing that you have the coverage you need and the savings that you deserve. Check with Chapter today. Not that we like Hillary, but it's kind of one of those things. I think she was like, you know what? Screw it. If I'm going to be the one having to go before Congress, I'm going to let it all out. And somehow they got swept under the rug. And they were like, oh, it'll still be public, but it'll be under closed door meeting. So that means you're not going to hear every little bit of that meeting. There'll be some things redacted. Kind of like what Kash Patel and Demagogia were doing, and Pam Bondi. Still, zero rest in all these situations when you hear things like cannibalism and just very, very, very evil, depraved things. I want you to listen to what this alleged girlfriend of Epstein said. She said, if anything happens to me, there's a very detailed video that would be let go and published on all social media. She said, the sad thing is, what you don't realize is Epstein wasn't the worst of them. I guess it goes back to those like Dr. Evils and things. But listen what she said. She said, y'all should ask Bill Gates about Sonia. Now, when you start hearing these kind of things, basically you're hearing all these names thrown out to be evil. And not only evil, just absolutely, not just little shady things. And I mean, no bad is good. But what I'm saying is, we're starting to see things that are not just bad. It is absolutely satanic. And this kind of goes back to the Olympic Games. This goes back to the halftime show. It's amazing how all these things start tying in. And you realize that it's just one big satanic party. I will say this. Lavrov for Russia came out. And again, I don't support Russia. But Lavrov came out, which is kind of like their Secretary of State. You know, kind of their big speaker over there. He said what these files did is just expose the depravity and really the satanic rituals of the Western elite. And I thought that was spot on. I think that's why they redacted this. That's why I think you should fire everybody in government that had a chance to let this go over the last 20 years. See, we want to blame it on Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, and we should, because they said they were going to help and be a little bit more transparent. But to be honest with you, these same files were under Obama and under Biden and under Trump's first term, and no one wanted to release them because, to be honest with you, there's bad players on every side. There's ties to Howard Lutnick and Steve Bannon and all these. You know what? Every one of these people should be fired. If they have been known to cause problems, they should be gotten rid of. RFK admitted that he was on the plane twice. Now, he said he didn't do anything shady. Well, that's what everybody's saying. But like this lady saying, all you got to do is, you think Epstein was the worst? No way. He said, ask Bill Gates. Ask some of these other big players, Reid Hoffman. That's the kind of stuff that when you actually start diving into this, I think the more we expose, the more we know, and the more we're not doing about it, if we're not doing anything about it, it's going to cause for chaos. Like I said in yesterday's video, I want you to listen to what she said here too. She says, Epstein's empire was not just him. It was part of an intelligence-supported global network, allegedly. And she said, this is undeniable. She said, these web of circles where power existed for ages, and it allowed for the biggest elite blackmail clubs ever. Said this was just a piece of it. What we've realized is this global danger is why we still have them running the Super Bowl, why we still have them tied to social media, why we still have all this going on, and yet no arrest has been done, because they can't arrest all the ones that's done it, because it would literally get rid of everybody. Do I believe Thomas Massey should get up and read all these names? Yes. If not, just shut up, because he's doing the same thing. Well, I'm telling you, I'm going to read all the names. I'm going to give them a chance. The DOJ has already proven they're not going to do anything. So if Thomas Massey really wants to do this, he needs to get up before Congress and read all these names. So then, therefore, let the chips fall as they may. I want you to listen to this, which was said about this Dr. Evil. It says, Dr. Stephen Victor is mentioned 567 times in the Epstein files. For some reason, this guy has been referred to as Dr. Evil 43 times in this. What do we know about this guy, and who is he, and what kind of medical doctor is he? I mean, when you start actually looking into this, you start realizing it's not just a few scientists. It's not just a few politicians. It's not just a few billionaires. It's everybody. So when you start saying the people that were not on there, like, there was a guy saying, like, Palmer Lucky's not on there, and like David Sachs, some of these other rich billionaires. And it's like, those guys, that's the people I want leading us, because for some reason, they wasn't tied up in all this. It's amazing to me that shows there is some principally obligated people, I think, in the world still. And I think that's where you have to separate the chaff from the wheat here. That's what we've got to do. We've got to figure out who is on these lists and get them out of power. The ties to the Rothschilds, the ties to the great financial crisis, Bear Stearns, J.P. Morgan Chase. When you actually start seeing these ties, you start realizing there'll never be arrest. Never be arrest. Because of that, I don't even know how we go forward as a country and actually act like we can handle this. Because it's not right. It's not right. Alex Jones came out yesterday and says, newly released and verified files confirm that the globalists literally engaged in all the things I've been saying for 30 years. Cannibal things and satanic rituals and all this stuff that I documented, and everybody told me I was crazy. He said, this stuff is actually happening. And he said, sadly, we talked about it at the Bilderberg, we talked about it with all these other groups. He said, we're busting one, but there's hundreds more of these groups. Even Andrew Tate said this in a lot of circles he knew. He said, there's evil like this all over the globe. And I think that's why they can't really expose all this, because if they start exposing this, they're going to start exposing all this, and then you're going to realize that it was really all just a government hoopla. This was all tied to government. Now, two more stories I want to hit on, and this is what's so crazy. We pull out the WHO, these Epstein files drop, and I told you something big will be happening because they need something to distract. Well, we talked this big agreement with Iran's coming up, the situation with the dollar falling, the situation with the markets going absolutely crazy up Friday, but falling way down the last few days. Also, jobs numbers come out that are not good, so we're wondering what the market's going to tomorrow. We're always wondering what's going to happen this big, because it's got to distract us. It's kind of like the Fort Knox gold. Have you heard anything about it? Did you know what's so crazy? Epstein talked to the people with Bitcoin and dealt with the starters of Bitcoin a long time ago. Had connections with them. Isn't that weird? That's why I always say that I believe CIA is totally involved in that. I think Satoshi is CIA, but I digress. That's not what the story's about. But he also had another email that dealt with, he believed that Fort Knox didn't have any money in it anyway. Now again, this guy was part of the intelligence asset or agency, and it's funny how we just forgot about that story, didn't we? What about that audit? Isn't it amazing? See, that's what they need. They need distraction. So all of a sudden, here we are, worried about cancer, worried about, getting out of the WHO and how all of a sudden it's going to cause major problems for all over the world. Listen, just this last week, in 1 week, we've been trying to do research on cancer for 30, 40, 50 years. This one last week, 6 cancer cures suddenly just were found that now have a cure for cancers. February 1st to the 4th, pancreatic cancer, there was a cure for it in Spain. And 3rd to the 5th, colon cancer in Asia. Colorectal lung metastatic cancer, China. HPV and related cancers found to heal in Mexico. Blood cancers like leukemia found healed across the world. Russia cancer vaccines all of a sudden are coming out, and it's causing for healing. That was all through the 1st to the 8th of February. Isn't it weird how all that came out right now? Was it just, do we always know about this? Did all of a sudden this just be a coincidence? Or was it for distraction? See, I think that's what all this stuff is. I think we get so much stuff fed to us. Remember, part of the bill that the Congress just passed, the Republicans just passed, the stopgap bill, that was like $1.4 trillion, whatever it was. Remember, part of that was going to propaganda for the CIA, for its American people. So I think a lot of all these stuff and all this news that we get, I think it's all distraction, so it helps us take our eyes off the real prize. And we're so ignorant and foolish that we do. Because again, how many times have we talked about the Fort Knox gold since that story left? How many times have we talked about this or that when those stories left? We still have got zero rest from the fraud. And we've kind of just swept it under the rug. We talked about Tim Walton. We're like, oh, he's going to resign. We're going to arrest Ilhan Omar. We're going for Keith Ellison. We're going to do all this stuff. Nope. Zippo. It's amazing how quick stories leave us. And it's like this. I love the fact that there's cures for cancer. That's great. But those patents have been there, and all of a sudden it happens all in the same time that we do this massive release. I just thought it was kind of a coincidence, didn't you? Now, last story I want to bring up, and this is where I get personal. I told you, every day I'm trying to kind of end on a really, really important story to me that deals kind of with faith and deals with spiritual things. I want to read this. I thought this was really good from a minister that came across my feed just yesterday. It says, a wake-up call from Scripture. The Bible warned us the great falling away will be here, especially when it comes to end times. And it says the surge of wickedness is here. The more we're seeing with the exposure of fraud and all this stuff, like we talked about yesterday's video, is we're seeing wickedness for what it is right in front of us by some of the biggest players that we know. If you open your Bible to 2 Thessalonians 2:3, it declares that let no one deceive you. The day of Christ's return will come unless the falling away will come, and the falling away will come first. Man, what a time is now to where we're seeing people trying to deceive us and truly falling away from God. Even down to the Bad Bunny thing with JC. The satanic rituals that are starting to get exposed. It says, look around you, church. We're witnessing right now massive apostasy in the churches. Embracing false doctrines. Love this cold, dead churches. There's no coincidence. The prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. Now, I'm not one of those people that say that, you know, the world is ending tomorrow. We don't know. But I do know this. Times are not getting easier, especially for Christians. If you remember what I said about that congressman yesterday, and then you see the depravity of people, and you see the hatred towards the white Christian family, the hatred towards people like the Charlie Kirks of the world, I think we are seeing the falling away. Now, that doesn't mean that the time draws near and it's going to happen tomorrow, but what it does mean is we're one day closer each and every day we wake up. One thing I've tried to instill in my children, literally every morning before I go to work and as they're getting ready for school, we love you. We keep you home so we don't have to put you in the precarious situations that most people are put in each and every day. And we tell them all the time, you're going to be a minority as you get older. Your Christianity, your walk with Christ is going to be harder than what your mom and mine is. Why? Because the falling away is happening right before our very eyes. I love to see people that are growing closer to Christ. You're starting to see some of that. But I think because you're starting to see that light exposure and you're starting to see more people get closer to Christ, you're starting to see the wickedness for what it is and the exposure of the wickedness, and yet nothing's getting done. When we know about the depravity and the fraud and the dangers of what's going on, the satanic things, and we do nothing about it, I think that's when it's going to get tougher on us as Christians because we're not willing to stand up against it. Another great point that Glenn Beck said the other day, I was listening to him, he said, what we don't realize is this stuff is happening right before our very eyes. For the longest, we may have not known it. We may have assumed it. But now, it's out in the open. And what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it, guys? We can pray, and I believe that's the main thing. We need to pray for our nation. But now it's time to be bold as lions and stand up and don't kowtow to anything. Live for Christ and represent Him, and make sure your children understand that they have to have the same morals and values and staunchness and strength, because I think times are going to get really tough, really quick, really fast. Guys, let me know your thoughts on today's video. God bless.